Hi, and welcome to this demo of Dell AppSync 4.5 Kubernetes Support. My name is Itzik Reich. I'm the Vice President of the Technologies team here at Dell. And what we're going to cover today is two things. First of all, what is Dell AppSync? And the second thing is one of the new features to its 4.5 version. So without any further ado, let's start. So what is Dell AppSync? Well, think about AppSync as our copy data management solution, which really covers two purposes. The first one, it integrates directly with our storage array. Think about PowerMax, PowerFlex, PowerStore, etc. And it can take array-based snapshots to do two things. The first use case is copy data management, is backup. So think about virtual machines that you want to take backup of them and then restore them while you have a leg on the ground, sort of say. It doesn't replace product like PowerProtect or Networker, etc. It just complements them by leveraging the array-based snapshots. So think about near-term backup for that purposes. And that's true for both virtual machines or even deeper integration into applications such as Oracle or Microsoft SQL or Microsoft Exchange, etc., etc. It can also orchestrate and restore remote copies using array remote replication solutions. That's the first use case. The second use case is data repurposing. So think about the following use case, for example. Say that you have a Microsoft SQL database running in your production environment and you want to take an application consistent copy of that database and repurpose it, present it if you want, to your development environment so your developers can work on a copy of that SQL server. So that's repurposing, and that's exactly what we do with Dell AppSync. We do it for SQL, Microsoft SQL, Oracle databases, virtual machines if something is running on them, and new to this version is also Kubernetes. So with Dell AppSync 4.5, we're also introducing support for Kubernetes, whether it's running on bare metal or on OpenShift. And we can repurpose Kubernetes-based applications such as Microsoft SQL or MySQL or MongoDB, Cassandra, PostgreSQL, etc., and repurpose them into another namespace. Think about another namespace like a development environment, if you will. So very similar to what we do for traditional environments, but now new to Kubernetes environments because it's one of those things that customers have been asking us to do. So let's see a quick demo of how it actually looks like. So this is the AppSync UI, and the first thing I need to do is to add a Kubernetes cluster to it. So I'm going to provide the IP or the DNS name, if I have it, of the Kubernetes control plane. And the first thing I need to do is to add a token, the privilege, if you will, to that specific Kubernetes environment. So in order to do that, I actually need to generate a specific token for my kubectl command, which is exactly what I just did, and also provide that specific user-specific privilege to perform those backup, restore, and repurposing operations, which is what I'm doing right now. And that will, in return, generate a token. I can now copy, select that specific token, and input it back into the AppSync UI. And also provided the namespace that I want to basically install Velero and Object Store plugin to that specific cluster in order to leverage the backup and repurposing operation technologies themselves. So I'm going to provide the namespace and the bucket name for it. It will then in return add the Kubernetes cluster to the AppSync UI and database, and will also perform a discovery on that database, on that etcd database. The second thing I'm going to do is to basically specifically select the application here. So that's Kubernetes, as we mentioned before. As we mentioned before, AppSync also supports other types of applications. And specifically here, I'm going to take a backup of an MS SQL database that I'm going to run some queries on it. So you can see that the database is live and running with specific database instance in it. So after I discover the cluster, and you can see the database itself, the MS SQL database, I can go ahead and create a copy. Here I'm going to provide a bronze copy, which means bronze service plan, which means I'm going to take a local snapshot of that specific Kubernetes namespace using specifically PowerFlex local snapshots. I can add a specific label to that specific application, etc. So I will know what it actually means. And I can use pre-built-in templates that we provide to you which basically knows what to do before the application consistency being taken and after, etc., etc. And you can also add your own. And that's it. It now subscribing that specific application to the bronze service plan. As you can see, it went smoothly and it protected that specific instance running in a container, and you can see it here. And so what I'm going to do now is repurpose that specific copy into a remote namespace. So think about it like a remote Kubernetes cluster or the same one with a different namespace. And so that's what I'm going to do now, is basically provide it a mounting name on the Kubernetes cluster and on a new namespace, because in this specific example, I want to retain the original MS SQL container application and just repurpose it into a new one, providing my developers the ability to work on that remote container-based application. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, is I'm going to provide you the source namespace and the target namespace. And if you can also look down, you can see that I also have an option to select specific YAML files that I can apply after the recovery or repurposing purpose if I want that specific YAML file to do something unique. In this case, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to click the next button, finish. And that's about it. It's now going to go ahead and mount that specific MS SQL running in a Linux container under a Kubernetes environment into a remote namespace. So if I now run the kubectl command, you will see that I have a new namespace in addition to the old one. So suntest is the new one that I repurposed that specific database. Took about 70 seconds to repurpose it, which is nothing and very quick. And that's about it. I can now remote connect to that specific database and see that the database instances are there, and continue with my work and providing those developers the ability to work remote on these copies without touching the original database itself. So this is it. This is the command that I can now see that the remote database is there, up and running, and all the tables are there. If I'm now running the select tables command, select name command, it will show me all the database are basically running from there. And that's about it. This is how easy it was to repurpose a database. I can then go ahead and unmount the specific database if I want to. And that's it. So thank you very much for watching. AppSync can be downloaded from the Dell support website. And thanks again for watching. You can visit my blog at https://volumes.blog.